We're talking to my man, Mr. Graham Cochrane. We talk about how you can find yourself by not following the crowd. Specifically, we go through his R.E.B.E.L framework, which is going to help you live in true alignment. He talks about how you can actually manifest your dream reality in 3 years or less. We're going to be diving into this episode of the Happy Hustle Podcast.
Do you want blissful balance in your personal and professional life? Great. What's up, guys? My name is Kerry Jack, and I want to help you happy hustle a life you love, one full of passion, purpose, and positive impact. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur, a professional model / actor, a digital marketing specialist, a podcast host, author, a biohacker, an eco-warrior, a martial artist, a hippie cowboy, and a humanitarian. My goal is to educate, inspire, and entertain you to live a life of passion, purpose, and positive impact. It is time to happy hustle your dream reality.
Yee-yee. All right, my brother, Mr. Graham Cochrane, welcome to the Happy Hustle Podcast. I am super stoked to rock the mic with you.
Dude, I'm pumped to be here for a second time, so thank you, brother.
Let's go, man. I mean, you are a 7-figure entrepreneur, a TEDx and keynote speaker, you're a best-selling author, and you are the host of the Graham Cochrane Show, which is a top 0.5% globally ranked podcast where you help each week people create more money, margin, and meaning in their lives. Oh, that is just some gold. And you got a new book out called R.E.B.E.L, which is all about finding yourself by not following the crowd. And I'm super pumped to talk about this and how the happy hustlers can just really start to live in alignment. I know you and I are both very aligned on the topic of alignment, a little meta there, but that's the dang truth. And we're talking about it and I'm excited. But before we get into all that good stuff, Graham, what is something interesting about yourself that not too many people know?
Man, I can't remember what I said last time, but I have a second-degree black belt in Shotokan karate.
Oh,
I pull that one out every once in a while. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Back in the day, I used to be a martial arts kid. It was a lot of fun.
Heck yeah. That is a great form, the Shotokan. I was doing Ishinryu over here in Bozeman. You know, it's just another form for those people who don't know in karate, but very similar. But anyway, that's awesome, man. Do you still practice? Do you got the kids in martial arts at all? Or?
I don't. No, I haven't touched it in years, but I was literally talking to my kids just the other day about, I was quoting some Japanese stuff and they thought I was making up words, but it's like the little Japanese I knew from when I was in karate. And it was like the sort of like values we'd have to recite with our sensei before and after class. And one of them, I was translating them in English for them. And one of them's like refrain from violent behavior. And my kids just laughed at me. They're like, wait, so you're learning how to fight people and every day you say refrain from violent behavior? Like, how hypocritical is that? I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like, it's all about peace, man. It's not about violence. But they just laughed at me. I was like, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like when you are prepared, you can live in peace. Right.
Yeah, dude.
And
that's
if you're
it.
not prepared, same thing with business, same thing with your relationship. Although there is, adversity and life's variables at play. But if you are better prepared for whatever life potentially could throw your way, you can find peace and hopefully alignment, which kind of brings us to our topic, R.E.B.E.L. And, I'm really excited to talk about this, man, because, there's so many sheeple out there, it's just, I don't know how to say it. I'm going to speak bluntly. There's a lot of sheeple. They follow the crowd. They do what society says is important to do. We could go through the whole get a job, get married, have kids, white picket fence, and then you find yourself working a 9-to-5 job that really sucks your soul, and it's not fulfilling, but you've been able to, buck that mold and really create freedom, creative time, and financial freedom, the 3 freedoms I know all the happy hustlers crave. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about R.E.B.E.L. First and foremost, why'd you write the book?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's interesting how it came about. So John Gordon, I credit John for really helping me out. I was like spending a day with him and I was really trying to ask him like, bro, you're kind of doing, for those of you who don't follow John, he's like a best-selling author. He sold millions of copies of his books, the Energy Bus, the Carpenter, a lot of great books, The One Truth. And he's a top keynote speaker. And I looked at a guy like him and I was like, you know what? that's where I envision myself in
Mm,
10 years, is doing more speaking and writing
mhm.
thought leadership books that people actually read. His books are nice and short and they're
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
readable, and people get like, I want a book someone's actually going to read,
Yeah.
And so I kind of brought him in. He came over to my place in Tampa because he's in North Shore, the Jacksonville Beach area.
Mhm.
But I was like, hey, come over and spend a day. And I just was like, bro, teach me the ways, master. Like, how do I be a
Yeah.
great keynote speaker and author like you? Because my first book had just come out and I was like just starting this stuff. And he said, well, what's the message of your second book? I'm like, well, I haven't written a second book. I don't. He said, well, what would you write about? I'm like, bro, I just wrote my first book. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, can't I just
Yeah.
celebrate that I got a book out in the world? And he was really more interested in what the message of the second book was. So I say all that to say that day we
Mm,
like try to workshop all the things I could write about next: business, uh, raising kids, like all kinds of stuff, like my life and lifestyle design stuff, the stuff you talk about. Like, I was like, I don't know what would be most meaningful. And so then he said, well, bro, tell me your life story. And I didn't get very far, but as I got through like high school and like wanted to be a rock star, which was my dream, and like everyone's saying we got to go to college, and I was like, what's the point of college if I'm just going to be a famous musician? Like, I can skip that whole college thing and just go
yeah, yeah,
chase the rock star dream. And then that didn't work out. And then like when I started my business in the Great Recession, like everyone's like, why aren't you getting a job? And I was like, I'm blogging and I'm doing YouTube, and everyone thought I was crazy, but he said, bro, you never do what people tell you to do you?
Mm,
You're
mm,
a rebel. He said, you're a rebel. I was like, rebel? I was like, bro,
mm,
that's language like I've never used for myself. But when it came out of his mouth, it was like I better understood my own story, if you know what I mean.
mm.
Like, I was like, yes, I am a rebel, because and I used to think of rebels as like the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars, or Rebel Without a Cause like James Dean. But like, it's everyone's going one way.
Yeah.
There is this current, I call it the current of conformity. It's like a little
Mhm.
stream or river. It has a current, it's moving. And when you're not choosing life, like you're not doing the alignments that you teach, you're not following the stuff that you write about in your book, like you're going somewhere and you're going to go where everyone else is going. And there's a lot of reasons why we conform, by the way, and we can unpack those if you want. But there's that, and you might not like where you end up in the
Mhm.
way you parent, the way you think about work, the way you manage your money. Like, there's a conformity for all of these areas. But then to be a rebel in my mind is to like actually have the guts and the courage to live in alignment with how you're actually designed. Like, give the world your truest self
Mm.
with your gifts and your talents, even if the world pushes back and doesn't like it. Because honestly, most rebels in life, whether it was, you know, Jesus Christ or Martin Luther King Jr. or Steve Jobs, like nobody liked what they were doing at the time,
Yeah.
right? But now they're like legends, like, because
Yeah.
they changed things because they saw something differently. But at the time, people don't like different. We just don't like
Mhm.
different. So anyway, it's all John. When he brought that up, I instantly knew this was like, I got to write about this, because this is something that's real for my life, and it makes sense in how I run my business, my family, my money. And
Mm.
then the Rebel framework came to me in 48 hours. I pitched it to the publisher. 2 days later, they signed it for book number 2. And they're like,
Mm.
great, when can you have the manuscript in? I was like, I gotta write this. I don't know, dude. So that was last year for me. And it was a journey, bro. Like, I'll be honest, like this book, where my first book was written out of like years of like teaching the method and the experience, this book was like a discovery process of like
Mm.
really connecting dots in my own life for the first time. So it felt very strange to write it. But when I finished it and I read it back through, and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. This is like how I'm in a way coaching people, but I didn't
Mm.
even realize it. So it's beautiful and instructive for me. It's been great, man. But I credit John for the title and for really sparking the idea.
Mm. Yeah, John Gordon is a legend. Shout out to you, bro. He's been on the show too. So for the happy hustlers who want to go deep into that, we'll link it up in the show notes, that episode. But yeah, I mean, the title hits home for true rebels at heart. Like I just feel like if you're out there right now listening or watching, and you're destined for more, and you're trying to almost like identify what that means, it means you have to go against the current of conformity. I think that's so beautifully said. And I feel like in some way, shape, or form, we all have been victims of conformity. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Like
Yeah.
there's no way around it. Like you're
Yeah.
swimming in a sea of it. Like it's all around you.
Yeah.
It's going to take effort to get out of it.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not that you're not conforming. Like, let's be honest, there's laws and you're conforming to the laws, right? There's,
Some conformity is a good thing. Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say there has to be a balance, right? If we're talking about, you know, that ebb and flow of conformity, you need to, use discernment with where you conform and where you rebel, right?
Mhm.
Where do you recommend those start rebelling?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, there's like you're right. Some conformity is good. Like a society won't function if we don't have, I think, like some moral absolutes. Like it is wrong to take somebody's property. Like without property laws and people conforming to those laws, it's chaos, man. And there's countries
Yeah.
that, it's chaos. So I think some conformity is good. You know, the thing I'm talking about here is, and you're alluding to it, I kind of identified as 6 core areas of life. And I know you've got your 10 in your
Yeah.
assessment, which I love. And we took your assessment like in real time on my podcast, and which is
Yeah.
fun in
Yeah.
front of my audience. Such a great assessment, by the way. But
Thank
the
you,
6
bro.
core areas I talk about in the book as potential starting points to rebel are
Mm.
the way you look at your work, what you do for work, the way
Mm-hmm.
you manage your time,
Mm.
your money or finances, your relationships, your health, both physical and mental, and then your spiritual life.
Mm.
Because those are 6 very broad areas. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
at life in those through the lens of those 6 areas, there's probably some prescriptive path that you're following. And this is the way relationships should look. And it probably
Mm.
you learned it from your parents or the relationships you see around you. This is the what you do with your money. The culture just kind of copies what other people are doing. Spiritual life, like if you grew up without a spiritual life, and you're like, you might not have one, and if you grew
Mm-hmm.
up in a certain spiritualistic home, like you might follow that or push against it because you didn't like it, but you're affected by it, right? So like all those areas, and like we were talking before we hit record about like you're in dad life and what a new dad looks like, and how
Mm-hmm.
the dynamic of your marriage changes and the family goes from 2 to
Mm-hmm.
3, and it's not just more people, it's like you now add, both of you and your wife add new roles, and it's like, wow, now you're starting to have to make decisions. What do we want our family of 3 now to
Yeah.
look like?
Yeah.
And what's going to be true and be aligned with us, the Jack family? Like what's going to make sense for us
Mm.
versus the way other people live and make decisions for their families. And the hard part is when you don't know what you want and you
Mm.
don't know what matters to you because you haven't done the deep work. Because let's be honest, this is one reason why we conform, Carrie, is like we're just so darn tired.
Yeah.
Like we come home from work, or even if you have your own business, like if you're starting it, like it feels like you're just trying to tell the whole world about the thing you have and how great it is, and just getting people to pay attention to you sometimes is
Yeah.
exhausting. So at the end of the day, you don't have any brain cells left to rub together to make a decision about how we're going to run our family or how
Mm.
we're going to manage our time. So we end up, I think, abdicating a lot of our decisions to like, well, what does everybody else do? That's easier than thinking for ourselves. And so I get it. Like I'm tired a lot too, and especially when you have young kids. Like when my
Yeah.
kids were young, like I was like, bro, I can't think about this, but it's worth doing a little bit of work.
Mm.
And in the book, like if I kind of wrote the book like a coaching session. So like if you read it and just went away and I wasn't there, like it's like I'm there coaching you and giving you enough self-guided exercises that are aligned in an order that even if you can't do it all at once, if you just did the first one, you
Mm.
would be one major step forward and better understanding yourself. And my premise is that you won't know yourself if you're in the crowd. You have to almost separate yourself from what everyone else is doing, do the deep work, and then
Mm.
you can come back to the world. The idea is not to like disappear, I think, and just be like a monk somewhere that rejects the world. I think, and I posited this at the very end of the book, like the beautiful thing is if you do this process, you actually come back to the world and the people that you're around as your fullest, truest version of
Mm.
yourself. And then you can make a big difference because the world needs you to show up the way you really were designed, not this fake you, not the view that when you're exhausted, you just do the best you can, not the you that you think you're supposed to be, but the real you.
Yeah. Oof. The real you indeed. Amen to that, man. Like the world does need everyone's truest, most authentic version. And unfortunately, I just feel like there's so many facades out there. You know, people they they just put on a front and they're not being true. And you know, I'm a victim of that as well. Like I think we all have different personas, rightfully so, you know, with our different, you know, variables of life in those different environments. But the more you can show up and live in authenticity, the better, and the more people you can serve, and the more positive impact you can make. You talk about these different areas of life: work, time, money, your health. Did you say mental and physical health? Those are separated, right?
Yep. Those
And
are
then,
together in health. Yep.
oh, they're together. And then spirituality. What
Yep.
was I feel like I'm missing one. And which one am I missing?
Um,
Work, time, money, health, spirituality.
relationships.
Oh, relationships. That's it. Yeah, we
Yep.
can't forget that one. That's a big one.
Other people. Yes, there are other people in the
Yeah,
world.
there are other people in this life that you must coexist with if you want to be happy hustling and you know, be a rebel. So let's unpack the rebel acronym. I love acronyms, as you know. And we got the soul
Yep.
map, an acronym. Your soul's map to the, you know, blissfully balanced promised land. We got acronyms within the acronym for each alignment. I think, you know, a little tip of the hat to Rory and Brand Builders Group for that one, you know, because
Yep.
he's an acronym phenom, and they're sticky. They help people
Yeah.
because you can remember them. So I'm a proponent of acronyms. Let's break down the Rebel acronym.
Yeah. So if you accept the premise that, hey, if we don't do anything different today, you walk away from this podcast and don't do anything different, you're conforming somewhere in your life. And if you're honest with yourself, that's not leading to fulfillment. Like fulfillment doesn't come from following the crowd. I think it comes from finding yourself, like your true self. So if you're like, you know what, I want to be fulfilled in life. I want to feel like the way I'm, you know, we're all looking for fulfillment, probably in the wrong places. But if you want that feeling of fulfillment, if you want success at what you're doing, if you want to be satisfied in what you're doing, because those are two different things. You can be successful and not satisfied.
Yeah,
And if you
that's
want
such
to
a
be
great
of service
distinction.
to people, right? Yeah, that's even harder to be successful than and not satisfied because you'll be stuck. And then if you want to be of service to people, so I want those three S's: success, satisfaction, service. It really comes down to 4 words: doing it your way. That's what I've discovered. And so I call that being a rebel. So the way we do that in the book is through the acronym REBEL. And the R stand, I'll walk you through the 5 real quick if you want, and then we can deep dive anywhere that's interesting to you. But the R stands for resolve to dream again. It all comes down to dreaming. If you don't like that language, desires, wants, hopes, this isn't about necessarily following all your dreams. This is about becoming more familiar with yourself. And so my premise is that dreams are giant clues as to the way we're wired. So if you don't know what you dream about, dream of doing, being, or having. Like I'll pull that from Tim Ferriss, right? He talks about what do you dream of doing, being, or having? It's a great way to think about it if you're like stuck.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you dream about or used to dream about, maybe it's time to dig up some old dreams. Maybe it's time to, like, I thought dreaming was foolish. Like, to be honest, I dealt with something, Carrie, that I call the identity crisis intersection, which is you have a dream. That dream could be like a business. It could be a financial dream. It could be a relationship dream. And then that dream dies. For me, my dream that died was my rock star dream. I was running out of opportunities that had money attached to them, and I was engaged to Shay at the time, and I needed money, and so I had to make this choice, right? My dream of rock star died. It could be your relationship dies. Maybe you're divorced. Maybe she runs out. Maybe he runs out. And you're like, dude, that died. Maybe you never quite got to the dream, but whatever it is, the dream dies. This is this tender, really important place that I call the identity crisis intersection, where when your dream goes, your identity goes with it, because our dreaming is who we are. It's how we function. And so when a dream dies, part of you dies with it. And so you're at a fork in the road, and you can choose one of 2 options. You can either conform, take the path of conformity. That's what I did, right? When my rock star dream died, I said, forget this. I'm embarrassed because I told everybody in high school and college that I'm going to be a famous musician. And when they would ask me, how's that going, Graham? You know, it was embarrassing. Like I felt like, whoa, so I resolved to never dream again. I was like, I'm done. That's stupid. I guess we don't get what we want. I guess that was just what the movies told me. I'm just going to get a regular job, pay my taxes, and try to be a good husband and keep my head down. And that that took me through 4 years of like the dark valley of I hate my life, lost 2 jobs anyway. It wasn't satisfying, wasn't secure. And that's what took me to the global recession in 09, and where I started a business. I had no idea what I was doing, on food stamps, broke, and the rest is kind of history with my story of like, oh my gosh, I could actually pursue a new dream, that's the second path, right? You can either conform, like, I'm not going to get married again. I'm not going to be in a relationship again. That was too painful. I'm not going to pursue financial independence because I got further in debt. That's embarrassing. So most people just say, forget it. Or their parents told them to stop dreaming. Just get a job. Or the world beats it out of you. Just conform. Just be like us. That's a choice when your dream dies. But the other choice is you can dream again. Maybe it's you chase that same dream another time, 100th time. Or it's like me, you dream a slightly different dream or slightly different version of the dream. I still get to like impact people and like make a difference in their lives. I actually still do music at my church twice a month. Like I actually get to sing like with a legit band. It's just like there's actually now multiple dreams I'm living. I just had a very narrow view of what that dream was. So I say all that to say that the first step of the R.E.B.E.L framework is to resolve to dream again, because dreams tell us something about the way we're wired. It's not a perfect end-all be-all system. It's the starting point of what do I really want? And that's going to be different than what you want, Carrie. That's going to be different than what someone listening to this wants, but it's going to tell us something about ourselves. And without that, the rest of the framework just doesn't make sense.
Dang. Powerful stuff, man. And yeah, I see you crushing it on the church stage, man. I know you're still a rock star at heart. So, shout out to Graham. He's got a great voice too. What can people like search your music anywhere? I just want to shout that out.
I mean, you can find me anywhere music is played, Spotify, Apple Music.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm going to listen to some Graham today.
There's some old stuff. Yep.
Okay, cool. But here's a question. Okay. Because we're talking dreams, right? And I think dreams, they almost get a bad rap, It's like, people are like, you get your head out of the clouds, get back to reality, right? And maybe we stop dreaming, especially when we get older. We lose that like childlike wonder. But they're giant clues, like you said. And you have to think about what the doing, being, having, those different components. But here's my question. What if you have direct conflict with your dream, maybe from your spouse, your family, your inner circle, your friends, like you did, right? And like I have, and like I know the happy hustlers do. At what point do you conform on your dream, or let's say sacrifice your dream for someone else and the well-being of the unit per se?
I love this question, because this question just shows, Carrie, that you have a heart and that you care, right? So I love it. So what I don't want people to hear me saying is that it's all about you. You are the center of the universe and you need to get what you want. That's not the point. And if you read the book, you won't get that take. I know it's hard on a podcast to cast the full vision of the author's intent, but my premise is that dreaming is a starting point, is that it's a clue, and everyone needs to go through a dreaming exercise. I walk you through one in the book called the 50 Dreams exercise. And it's just like some uncovering, like, look, bro, I've got tons of dreams, and maybe a lot of them won't ever happen. They may not make sense, but I learned something about myself from the dream, about what I value and what I don't value. So there's that benefit of just at least learning about yourself. But then two, as you get further into the book and the R.E.B.E.L framework, but also as you start to, this is like 30,000 foot view stuff. Like we're up in the clouds, because you got to start in the clouds. Like
you gotta.
Not every dream is a great dream. Not even dream makes sense. But like, bro, to deny the dream is to like, you're never going to get anywhere. You just got to at least acknowledge that I think this would be cool. Like I want to be in a Star Wars movie. That's one of my dreams.
Nice.
I don't know if it makes sense or if it'll ever happen, but it says something about the playful quality of like, well, I like movies. I want to see what it's like to be on the set. Like you're an actor. Like I think all that's really cool. And maybe there's something there that I can learn about myself that I can actually like shoot for. Maybe I don't get into a Star Wars movie, but I'm in a movie or whatever. That'd be cool. But when you're talking about is really interesting to me, which is what if those dreams are in conflict with other people that I'm close to? And this is why I feel like if I at least know what I care about and what I'm interested in, if I have a close relationship, if I'm married or have a significant other, if I have children,
Mm,
like I need to then filter those dreams through the reality of the people that I'm responsible for and I care about also. Because in my family, Graham's dreams and dad's dreams like aren't the end all be all. I'm not like, you or guys are going to just like follow in my wake. I'm the leader of my family, and then I'm responsible for the well-being of my family, and I need to take the brunt of like the attack on the outside world and protect them and provide. But like I'm going to bring my dreams to them and say, this is something that I really care about. Is there a way we can do a version of this? You know,
mm-hmm.
like, so real time, bro. One of my dreams is to like, again, going back to John Gordon. I want to be on more physical stages. We all love to travel in my family, but I imagine like traveling a lot, speaking, and combining that with trips.
Mm,
And like, I've got friends that travel, you know, every weekend they're gone, or
yeah.
2 or 3 times a week they're speaking. That dream, whether I want that or not, that version of that dream is not going to make sense in this season of life. I've got
True.
a wife and two daughters, a teen
Yeah.
and a preteen. I've got 3 years left with one, 6 years left with the other. Like right now, the most important thing I could do is spend time with my daughters and like
Yeah.
raise them, love on them. So I'm going to do a version of that dream, which is maybe I'm going to speak, you know, 5 to 10 times physically on a stage a year. Try to do a lot of virtual stages like this.
Mm,
Because I want to be with them. And
yeah.
I'm like, I can do a different version of that dream where I'm busier. Shay and we can travel the world and take over the world later in like my late 40s or 50s or whatever. So some of that is just having a sensitivity to a starting point. Here's my dream. And then if there's people you care about, like my wife and daughters, bring it to them. Now, the difference though, like when I started my business in the Great Recession, like I had this dream of doing my music side hustle, which was like recording bands and artists. And so the reason I started a blog and a YouTube channel was just to get more leads. And then that ended up turning into a content business. I didn't know that online courses were a thing or communities. And that's how I got into that whole world. My wife was on board with me not going back to work. She was on board with me pursuing the entrepreneurship thing, as scared as she was, just as I was. Like I talked about it with her. I was like, hey, I don't even know. She actually was like the one that pushed me to do it because I didn't know if I could do it. But we were at least aligned on giving it a try. So when the outside world or my parents or my in-laws were a little like, I don't know about this, Graham, I at least felt like, hey, well, my wife and I are aligned and I'm okay with that. If my parents don't trust me or don't approve of it, I'm okay with it because at least my wife's on board and we'll give it a shot. And so I felt comfortable with that, but I had to deal with everyone else saying, this is crazy, this is crazy. But at least my wife didn't think it was crazy. If she thought it was crazy, I would have had to really do some hard. That's why marriage is hard. Like it's not a unilateral decision. I'm not a single person anymore. Two become one. And it's like, wow, we got to compromise. We got to figure this out together. And that's the challenge of relationships. So I love the question.
Whoa. Apologies for interrupting your programming. But I have to tell you, the best investment you can make in yourself is one in which helps you acquire skills. You've probably heard people talk about, oh, just invest in yourself and you'll be successful. Yes, that's true to a degree, but you have to invest in skills that will ultimately help you achieve your desired results. And I think one of the best skills one can possess, be it an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, is the sales sword. Really knowing how to sell, utilizing pressure-free persuasion, which will make you more money and more impact. Now, if you want to know how to sell more efficiently and effectively, I just launched a sales course called The Proven Roadmap Process to Selling Millions of Dollars and helping you to increase your conversions guaranteed. And you can get access to this new sales course that the Happy Hustle is launching at thehappyhustle.com/sales. And if you act fast, you'll get it at the lowest price it'll ever be available because we are launching it and we want to gain amazing testimonials and social proof to further share this knowledge. So if you act fast, you can get it at the lowest price it'll ever be. That's at thehappyhustle.com/sales. Now let's get back to this episode.
Yeah. And I think like when you get to the end of the book, I talk about setting up like family values or personal values if you're single. And like that really comes together where dreams and values all really align because your values are not going to be unilateral either if you have a family. Like it's what do you value and what do you value and how do we create a family unit values, and we'll make sure we filter all of our dreams. My daughters, I want them to dream. I want them to do stuff. But some of their dreams, I'm like, hey, that's beautiful, but then that would mean you're gone 5 nights out of the week doing travel sports, and we don't get to be together. And one of our values is the family dinner table every
Yeah.
night as much as possible, or at least
Yeah.
5 nights out of the week. So that's in conflict. So how can you do the sport you want but not be gone that many nights? And they understand that. They're like, okay, yeah, I'm disappointed, but we're trying to make all of it fit together. And welcome to relationship, right? Compromise.
Yeah. Geez. Compromise. That is definitely the word when it comes to, your dreams and your relationships and, just alignment at large. You do have to compromise in life. Like it's a part of it. Obviously you need to know which dreams are worth fighting for, though. I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of, again, going back to discernment. I have a dream and it's almost a regret, like, just speaking honestly. Like I feel like I should have earlier, but I wanted to be a Marine, like a badass
Wow.
soldier. And I should have done when I was younger. Now I have a wife and kid, and it's like, if I went and just sacrificed everything to go join the Marines, I would leave them high and dry. So maybe there's a
Mm.
world where I can, be a reserve or something of the sort. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I owe my country and I want to serve, but I
Wow.
haven't.
That's
And
beautiful.
it's been a dream of mine, and it's just like, but again, where's the compromise? And I do think, yeah, that has to be a part of the conversation in your dreams. How, like, if you are, you know, yeah, well, pretty much everyone has relationships which you're going to have to compromise in
Yep.
any capacity, but there are dreams which are worth fighting for. And I think, going through the framework, that's what the book is all about, helping you, identify which ones you really should kind of lean into and go for. We got the R, which is resolve the dream again. Let's talk about the E in Rebel.
Yep. The first E is to establish the outcomes you
Mm.
want in life.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if dreaming is 30,000 feet in the air, establishing the outcomes is putting it on the ground. Okay, well, what does that look like? And so this is where we really talk about vision. This is really, simple stuff here, but I walk you through a framework. I call it the best 3 years framework. And it's interesting, Carrie, like I found that when I think about the future and you're casting vision, I don't know about you, but if I have like a 10-year vision or 10-year goal that seems so far away that it's either easy to lose motivation because it's like a decade away, or 10 years from now, I feel like I'm going to be a totally different person, because I know I am a totally different person than I was 10 years ago. So 10 years is like too far for me. A 1-year vision is like too close, because I can do a lot in a year, but it's not as much as you'd like to be able to do. So I find that 3 years is like a sweet spot for visioning of like, okay, in 3 years, I kind of know the season of life I'm going to be in, because it's pretty darn close to the season I'm in now.
Yeah.
But it's also 36 months away. You could do a lot of damage in 36 months in the best sense of the word. Like, you can transform your relationship, your body, your business. Like, you can transform a lot in 36 months. So I like a 3-year vision. And so in this part of the book, I just walk people through an exercise of really getting clear on, if we were to bump into each other, Carrie, in 3 years from now, and I'm like strolling through Montana, and I bump into you, and you're riding a horse or a buffalo somewhere, and I'm like, bro, it's Carrie Jack on a buffalo. Like, how the heck are you doing? And you're like, I'm doing great. And you're like, actually, Graham, it's been the best 3 years of my life since I last saw you on the podcast. And I'm like, dude, that's so freaking awesome. The best 3 years of your life. Why is that? What would you tell me about? Like, what would you want to say? Like, what would have to be true for you? And you could just do this journal exercise whenever, and just sit with it. Like, what would have to be true? Open-ended question.
Yeah.
If it were the best 3 years of your life. And again, this is starting to then put some meat on the bones of what you started to dream about, of like, well, this would be true with like my family, maybe, or this might be true about my business. Whatever comes up for you is like the answer. There's no right or wrong. And the more time you sit with it, the more details you'll get, the more permission you give yourself, depending on your personality. It might be harder for you to do this exercise, but this is the fun part of we say we want certain things. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a client that was like, bro, I want to make $100,000 a month. I want to get my business to $100,000 a month. And, he's making $25K a month or something like that. And I was like, okay, like that's just a great goal, a great dream, like fine. But then I had him do this exercise, the 3-year vision. And he came back with me. He's like, bro, I was like, what was your biggest insight after doing that exercise? He was like, dude, my biggest insight was that I don't need $100,000 a month to live my best life. Like the 3 years from now, like what came up for me had nothing to do with $100,000 a month, nor did it require that to fund the best 3 years of my life. And so the biggest insight was that I was chasing an arbitrary financial goal because it felt good and it felt exciting. And I'm not saying I wouldn't take 100K a month, but I actually now have way more clarity on what I want to chase after, which is certain things with his family, travel. He wanted to leave. He was living in Tennessee. He wanted to move to Florida because they always vacation there. He's like, I just want to go live in Florida. So why don't we just sell our house and move to Florida? So we're at the beach all the time. It's like, okay, now we're talking. And so sometimes you just might be surprised at what you thought was a dream. Once you think about the reality of it, you're like, you know what, I thought I want this, but what that tells me is what I really want is this, and this is what it looks like.
Some gold. I mean, that question is powerful. What would have to be true for these next 3 years to be the best 3 years of your entire life? I mean, dang, that hits. And like, if I'm on a Buffalo and I come up and I see, Graham in 3 years and I don't have a great answer, like, it's because I didn't do this journaling exercise. And if you are out there right now, be an active participant and literally just pause it and ask that question to yourself. That's how you get value from this time that you're spending with Graham and I right now. That's how you can change your trajectory, truly. All right, we got the R, we got the E. Let's talk about the B in R.E.B.E.L.
Yeah, so the B is hard and fun. It stands for break the negative habits and thoughts and patterns. So this is like, look, dude, and you know this, Carrie, if you're trying to radically change your life, or even just in one area of your life, see improvement and like progress, you can't just add new habits or like add new affirmations or just do new stuff or a bunch of activity without undoing like the old code. Like you gotta scoop out some crap in our brain. And so in this part of the framework, I'm really talking about what is your inner story. I walk people through an exercise I call the inner story audit. But like, one of the things I really believe, Carrie, is that if we listen closely, there is a still small voice that wants to guide us. So like in the Bible, like there's a character, Elijah, he makes this 40-day journey to the mountain of God to get wisdom from the Lord. And there's like a fire and an earthquake and a hurricane, all this crazy like manifestations of God's power that he does. And it says in the Hebrew that like God wasn't in the fire. He wasn't in the hurricane. He wasn't in the wind or the earthquake. But then after all those, there was this still small voice. And it's like, that's how God speaks, is it's like a whisper. It's very quiet. And if you're not a person of faith, like you could say it's intuition, right? Or you have a hunch. Like we all know if we sit with ourselves long enough, and if we can quiet the loud story that we're telling ourselves, we might actually get some insight. But the problem is that it's just so loud in our head, and it's usually loud with negative thoughts that we never question, that we never really sit with. And they come from our childhood. They come from a really traumatic experience. We don't even quite know exactly what it is we're believing because it's so vague. We just move past it. But what I take people through in this part of the book is like, there's 6 journal prompts, but like really get people to like acknowledge what are the things you're telling yourself, and are they true? And most people think they are because you tell yourself them all the time. And it's like, okay, it might be true. But then there's a great question that one of my friends and coach, Julia Woods, taught me years ago, which is, what else could be as true, if not more true than what you're believing? Just getting yourself to consider another option, right?
Yeah, right.
To form a new neural pathway. And I walk you through a bunch of exercises there of like identifying this inner story because it's so loud. The inner story is the loud narrative. And if we can identify it and destroy it, then we actually can start to put on new code, better code, new beliefs about not just this new version of you, but the true version of you that wants to, it's already there. Like you don't have to become something that you're not through this whole process. It's like, this is who you were already made. I believe God made you this way, but then our childhood, life, a traumatic experience, like I was broke, like I was unemployed, like anytime you have pain, like you just put up walls, you write new stories to make sense of it. Like, okay, well, this must be what's happening here. And then like that, you just covered up the real you. So what we're doing with the breaking is like getting off all the junk so that we can see the real us. and then we can like more bring that out to light.
Mm. Dang, man, some deep stuff. I love it. I mean,
Yeah,
you
dude, we don't
gotta.
play. We don't play.
No, Graham's bringing the heat. I mean, as JLD would say, right? Oh,
Yeah,
this is
there we go.
fire. I love it.
His
You know?
voice. What's up, Fire Nation? I love that guy.
Shake the room, Fire Nation. And JLD, I love you, so I can say it like that. But
Yep.
anyway, this is there's some stuff that you got to ask yourself, like, what are those negative thoughts and patterns holding you back? Man, I tell you, like, it's a cliche to talk about childhood trauma almost in nowadays. It's like, but that
Yep.
stuff runs our operating system. It's like a freaking mind virus almost internally, and you have triggers and you have things that are at play, and if you don't know thyself, it's going to be very difficult to achieve what you desire in this life and how you really want to positively impact the world, because first and foremost, you got to pour from a full cup, as much as
Yep.
possible. And man, the more I think about it, even in my own journey, it's like this stuff is really the true unlock to being a rebel.
Yep.
It's like you gotta really do this work and go through the journal process. All right, we got the R, then the E, then the B. Now we're on the other E in rebel. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah. So the second E is engage. Engage in rebellious new thoughts. So if we're breaking the negative thoughts, the stuff that, like you said so beautifully, runs our operating system, once we get some of that out, or at least acknowledge it so we can like minimize its damage, then we got to engage in new thoughts. So this whole process is all about, there's a bunch of different things here, and this can be how you think about how you start your day and your morning routine. Like, even though those are overdone, like there's so much wisdom in intentionally starting your day, as opposed to just jumping into the sea of conformity and letting you drift into the day. Like, I don't care what you do in the morning, but do something that primes your day to engage in these new thoughts that might be very alien and uncomfortable and awkward for you as you're stepping into this new full true version of yourself. So for example, I'll give you I have another acronym if you'd like acronyms within acronyms.
Let's go.
So
Talk
my morning
dirty to
routine,
me.
and I talk about it in the book. There we go. You love it, so we'll go for it. Is I call it the wait morning method. Like, wait before you jump into your day. Wait, WAIT. Wait.
Okay.
And so the W in wait stands for wisdom. So the first thing I do in the morning is I read some wisdom literature, something that's ancient, right? So I just feel like part of conformity is you're in a sea of not just what people are saying, but also the time that you're in, and even the culture and the country you live in. So anything that's written in the last 100 years in America, like, it's like, that's what I grew up in. Like, that's what I've been learning. So I like to read something that's thousands of years old from a different culture than mine. So my wisdom of choice is I'll read the Bible. I'll read Old and New Testament. New Testament is at least 2,000 years old. Old Testament, 3, 4, 5,000, from Hebrew culture, Greek culture. Like, this has nothing to do with the way I see the world or my schema. So it's so different than what I'm hearing on, Instagram or TikTok all day.
Yeah.
So I love starting with some wisdom literature. So you could read the book of Proverbs or the Psalms inside the Bible. You could read Stoicism if you're into that. I just think anything that's way outside of our time frame and our culture, like, just gets you thinking differently. I love to start with wisdom. The A is affirmations, which I always thought were awkward. I am an Olympic athlete if I feel overweight. Like, that's a little awkward for me.
Yeah.
But the way I look at affirmations really simply is, if I've done the process of dreaming and I've got the 3-year vision and I'm starting to listen to the still small voice, I'm breaking the negative thoughts, I probably have a better clue as to what I want to be true in my life and what I believe is actually true of me, but it's been laid dormant for a long time. And so I will write those things out in my journal and say them, of like, for example, this is real talk, right? Like, getting this new book out into the world, getting on more stages, sharing this message, it's felt outside of my comfort zone, because I've been in like the business online space for years. Like, I could talk about funnels and courses and YouTube all day long and feel so comfortable because I've done it well. I've taught it to people that have done well with it. And I feel like this is my safe, happy place. Going into this space, I freaking love this content, but this is not what I'm known for yet.
Yeah.
And so my imposter syndrome, my like, ooh, is this going to land? Are people going to want to listen to this from me?
Mm,
You know, I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not John Gordon. I'm not some of these people that are in this personal development space yet. So I almost have to reaffirm, bro, this is who I am, and this is who I'm becoming, and this is the stuff I'm birthing into the world. And I have to see it written down to go, yep, I can do this. I am going to do this. I am a speaker. I am an author, because all of this is newer for me.
mm,
So I like to write down affirmations. Um, I like to then go to the I after WAI for wait. The I is imagination.
mm,
And this is one of my favorite parts. This is where I like to do some, like, I like to set a timer for like 20 minutes on my phone to sit in complete silence. And I just start to imagine scenarios that I'm going to be stepping into. So, for example, if I'm
mm,
about to step on a stage and speak and I'm nervous, I'll like pre-experience that. We have a mutual friend in Mike Zeller. I was just blanking on his
mhm.
last name, Mike Zeller.
Nice. Yep.
He taught me a lot of this stuff too, of like, I coached with him last year for a bit and we did some deeper work on this, but really pre-experiencing stuff so that your brain and your body almost has that, like, it becomes like a memory as opposed to like something I hope is going to happen. Like, I've been there, I've done it in my mind. I love Dr. Maxwell Maltz's book, Psycho-Cybernetics, talks a lot about the power of like your body sometimes can't tell the difference a lot of times between a real experience or an imagined one if it's really detailed and deep, and so your subconscious can't tell the difference. And so your body can actually improve. Like, you can improve your free throw shot by just practicing in your mind. Like, they've done all these
Mm,
crazy, you can improve your golf swing by practicing in your mind. So imagination is really like pre-experiencing. So if I'm going to have a hard conversation with a team member or about to go on a big stage, I'll pre-experience that a little bit and imagine it in my mind. Or I'll just imagine like when R.E.B.E.L hits the shelves and it's selling, thousands of copies, and I'm picturing like tons of copies at Barnes and Noble. On, like, when you walk in, it's like Michelle Obama's book, and then it's like my book right next to it. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
could picture the cover. Like, I just like allow myself to really let that belief sink in deeper of like where I'm stepping into. And so I just, that's just fun for me. I love that, and it's
Mm,
quiet. I'm silencing myself. So imagination, that's the I, and then I end with T, which is thankfulness, which is just a
mm,
gratitude practice. I like to end with that. So it's the last thing before I go of like, dude, like, my life is great. No matter what challenges I have or what, like, I'm very type A. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. If you follow that, like, I want to achieve things like a lot of us do. And
mhm.
it's easy to get disappointed even if your life's great, because you're like, well, I didn't hit that number, or I didn't reach
Yeah,
that goal,
yeah.
or it wasn't
Yep.
quite big enough. So a person like me benefits from like, my life is great. I'm thankful for floating in the pool last night with my wife. I'm thankful for going to a cookout with my buddy, and he made some great dogs, like, I'm thankful for a little daddy daughter date with my daughters, and like we got brown sugar Pop Tarts and like and watch Star Wars or whatever it is. Like, big or small, very simple. I write down 10 things I'm thankful for, and that's my wait morning method. And I try to spend about an hour doing that in the stillness of the morning. But just like, that's a
Mm,
beginning of how you engage in these new rebellious thoughts. You actually have to put them into practice,
yeah.
and that's just one example of the many things you can do.
Yeah, man. It's gold, really is. You got to have some type of practice and routine. I know, Hal Elrod talks about savers, the Miracle Morning. We've had
Yep.
Hal on. Do you know Hal by chance? Eh.
I've never met him, but I've read his book. It's great. His stuff
Oh,
is great, man.
I should connect you. He's a bro. Yeah, he'd be good
That'd be awesome.
guy for you to know. But anyway, the point is, like, just have some type of routine that you take yourself through. And, speaking of acronyms, we do have one more letter left in Rebel. Okay, so hit us with the L.
This is the hardest one for me. It's to let go
Ooh.
of outcomes and others' opinions. So, which is ironic because the first E is to establish the outcomes you want. But at the end, what I take people through is you just got to let go of the outcomes. The outcomes are established to get you moving in a direction that's aligned with what you care about. But ultimately, you got to let go. And like, John Gordon's getting a lot of airtime on this episode, but
Yeah, right.
one of the things he said years ago in one of his books, and he's probably said it in a couple of books that I keep coming back to, is his focus on the process versus the outcome. And he says, if you love the process, you'll love what the process produces.
Mm,
And I'm not a process guy. I'm an outcomes guy. I'm
yeah.
like, how do I got to get to the outcome?
Yeah.
And he's really changed my thinking on, bro, just, you have an outcome you want, but like, focus then on what's the process to get there. And then now you let go. You're free of the burden of having to force the outcome, and you just focus on the process to get there. And the benefit of that is you just have peace and you have joy and you get to enjoy the moment, and you're not predicated on like, well, I'll only be happy when I hit this outcome, which is always temporary anyway. And then we just create another outcome. So part of it is letting go of the outcomes yourself, but then part of it is letting go of what other people think, which is the hardest part of being a rebel, because they will not like it. You will get pushback, even from people that you think would be all about it, even from people that want the same thing as you. Like they're offended or uncomfortable with your, some people call it the tall poppy syndrome. Like you're rising above everybody else, and they're like, just come back down, be like us, don't raise your head too high. And so you have to be really confident in what you value. And this comes back to something I take them through in this chapter of like creating your family values, so that you as a person or as a family or as a couple can say, hey, when the haters come and I get, insecure, because if you're honest, like it's really hard to have complete thick skin. Like people's comments do get in, they do get through. Like John Acuff says, he calls it critic math. 1,000 compliments plus one negative hatred comment equals one negative hating comment. Like it negates the 1,000 compliments, right? So it gets through. The critics get to you. So you have to get really clear on, well, this is what we value as a family or as a couple or as an individual. And so I'm just going to let go what people think. And dude, and this is the messy part of being a rebel, is like, it doesn't look really pretty. It doesn't work out very pretty. It's not this cute little thing, even though it's an acronym and it's like something I believe in. Like, and in the book, I share like examples of like the values that we've had as a family. We're fighting for them, and they look messy the whole time. Like my daughter, one of our values is like connection and not being like sucked into the internet world, which like is literally how I run my business, is online. And so part of that was like, I don't want to give my daughter, my oldest daughter, a phone too early. And all of her friends had phones like in elementary school and middle school. And like, we waited till she was 13. And now I think that was still too early. She still doesn't have social media. She didn't have internet on her phone for a year and a half. It was just like texting and calling, but like she hated it. Yeah. She fought us on it. Like, I'm the last woman standing. Like everyone has a phone but me. But we're like, and I get it. And so we were willing to endure that, her opinions and other people's opinions. Like other parents that were like, you're being a prude. I'm like, well, maybe, but I feel like everyone's kids are going to turn out to be like crazy people and like mega depressed. So this is me being judgmental, but like our value was like, hey, I want to hold our families away from the craziness as long as possible, so they're a little more developed. And so it sounds nice to be like, we waited till she was 13 when other people gave them phones at 8, but like it was so freaking hard, and she hated our guts for a couple of years. But now she's super grateful, and she doesn't even want to be on her phone that much.
That's awesome.
So that's an example of like, I have to just, I know what I'm shooting for. And at the end of the day, bro, this book is like all about getting clarity on who you are, what you value, and then choosing to just live intentionally and aligned like you teach with those values, regardless of what people say or even what you think of yourself, because it is going to be messy. You just gotta be okay with that.
Yeah, so true. All right, repeat that acronym one more time, the REBEL acronym, and tell people where they can get the book.
Yeah, bro. Resolve to dream again, establish the outcomes you want in life, break the negative thoughts, habits, and patterns holding you back, engage in rebellious new thoughts, and let go of the outcomes and others' opinions.
Where can get
and that's
people
it.
pre-order
And the book, go to therebelbook.com. You can pre-order it from a bunch of different retailers there. Take your pick. But then you can bring your receipt back there and enter it in to get over $300 worth of bonuses, including I did a whole masterclass with John Gordon where I teach you the whole book real time so you can start to apply it. And then what I did is I pulled out the 5 biggest exercises from the book and put it into a journal. I call it the Rebel Journal. And you get an instant download of that. And so you could start to work on these exercises and do the Rebel process long before the book comes out.
Let's go.
I've got a community there. I've got 30 days of like asynchronous coaching for me in your inbox with the Rebel Challenge. A lot of cool stuff, but just pre-order the dang book and then bring your receipt to therebelbook.com and then do the exercises, bro, because it can like change your life. You don't have to wait to read it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually going to be going through that workbook ASAP. I love these journal prompts. And this is the kind of stuff, guys, that can really change your life for the better. And I don't say that lightly. Graham and I are not one to overpromise and underdeliver. You know, that's just not what this is. This is how you can close the gap from where you are to where you want to be. It's stuff like this. And yeah, it's powerful, bro. I'm so stoked for it, man. Let's go. Rebel. It's gonna be, I mean, I'm projecting big things. This book can really change people's lives, and I'm proud of you. and I know what it takes to
Thank
put
you,
a
bro.
book out. So,
Yeah.
it's not easy.
You know that
Man,
pain. Yeah, it's hard.
yeah, it is. All right. I want to wrap up. I know you got some coming up, and as do I, and respect your time. Real quick, I'm going to put you through the rapid fire round, okay?
Let's
This
go.
is just, random questions. You answer honestly. First thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Favorite food? Go.
Pizza.
Favorite movie?
Uh, anything from Christopher Nolan. So probably like Interstellar. Let's go with Interstellar.
Best business advice?
Oh, do it your way.
Number one happy hustle hack for your money?
Ooh, automation. Automate as much as possible.
Number one happy hustle hack for your relationships?
Humility.
Number one happy hustle hack for your spirituality?
Humility also.
Yeah, right.
Don't think you know it all.
Right. And what about for your health? Number one happy hustle hack?
I'm a big intermittent fasting guy. It's been super good for me.
Love it. What's your spirit animal?
Oh man, I like to think you are my spirit animal, riding on a buffalo, shirtless with your beard. that's what I think.
That's the best, most unique spirit animal I've ever heard. That's awesome. 3 things you're most grateful for today, Graham.
Oh man, my wife, my daughters, and Jesus.
Love it. And if you had a billboard for the world to see with your last piece of content on there, what's that billboard read?
Oh man, it would read, gosh, something from Rebel. It would either say, "Do it your way," or "Be who you were meant to be."
Crush that rapid fire round, Graham. And man, brother, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for sharing your love, your light, your wisdom, your rebellious nature and insights, and just, how you show up really in the world as a friend to me, as a father, as a husband, as a leader of your community. I'm grateful to know you, bro, truly. And I'm just honored to collab and looking forward to kicking it more in person. And hopefully you come to Montana. I know you're coming soon. I hope we get some time together. So just thank you, man.
Thank you, bro. Love everything you're doing, bro. Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you. I've received that. Now, mention again, where's the best place for people to just follow you online and again, where they can get that copy of the book?
Yep, therebelbook.com for the book stuff. At the Graham Cochrane on Instagram if you do that, or the Graham Cochrane Show anywhere you get your podcasts, or YouTube.
Nice. Awesome. And I did rock the mic with Graham. If you guys want to check out that episode on the Graham Cochrane Show, he's a phenomenal host. And yeah, that was a great time. All right, man. Final question. What does happy hustling mean to you?
It means living a fulfilled life because it's the one that I chose to live. And I don't feel like I'm shooting all over myself, as they say.
I love that. Mic drop, y'all. Graham Cochrane, thank you for watching and listening. We are out. Peace and love, everyone.